The reading is entitled Dancing in the Winds of Change. And again, it's from the Sage's Tao Te Ching. The child rightly expects to be cared for by others. The youth still expects this, but rebels against it and lives in confusion and turmoil. The adult works hard at arranging externals in an attempt to provide security and lives in constant fear of losing everything. But the sage plays life as a grand game, seeing hard times as honorable opponents, increasing wisdom and refining skill. Your financial or physical status is irrelevant to your progress as a sage. You may make decisions that do not work as you had expected. You may lose rather than gain security. It does not matter. Your mission is to become a sage, a calm and supple person, dancing in the winds of change.
It's nice to be here with all of you. Thanks for coming. I was born in 1947 in Hutchinson, Kansas, surrounded by 4 doctors. My mother's father was a doctor and could have delivered me. However, he decided that he didn't feel comfortable doing so, but he also didn't want anyone else doing it. So he asked a colleague, and that colleague asked a friend to do the honors in case he was out of town. In the end, there were 4 doctors in the room, counting Grandpa and my dad, a veterinarian. My father was one of 3 children. He grew up on a farm in Kansas, 40 miles from Hutchinson, where my mother, an only child, was raised. They met at Kansas State, where Dad was pursuing veterinary medicine and Mom was working towards a career in medical technology. After graduation, my father joined his brother's veterinary practice, treating both small and large animals. World War II was revving up, and after enlisting, he was stationed at Fort Robinson in northwest Nebraska, where he and other veterinarians vaccinated and prepared horses for service in the cavalry. He later joined the Army Air Corps, and he flew P-38s, which he loved, although he never did fly in the war, but he did training on those for others. Mom followed him to Louisiana, California, Texas, and Arizona. My older brother Joe and sister Peg were both born during these 5 Army years. My parents named me Catherine Knappenberger, without a middle name. They thought it was long enough. They planned to call me Kathy, but I would have to say that my sister gave me my name. As a 2-year-old, she would say to people, "Come see Cassie, baby." And the name Cassie was the name that I used and enjoyed until I filled out my college application, shortening it to Cass. When I was 1, we moved to Westerville, Ohio, a suburb of Columbus. Dad had taken a job with Norden Laboratories, selling pharmaceuticals and biologicals to veterinarians. And although he traveled from Monday to Friday, my mom was really happy to be able to count on having him home on the weekends. Our neighbor told Mom that she made a point out of sitting on her porch on Friday afternoons so she could watch us happy kids run out like crazy to meet Dad. We 3 kids had a wonderful childhood. In these early years, I remember the 3 of us hopping on Rudy, a wooden rocking horse that Dad had made. We rode like crazy, with me strapped on the back with a green plastic belt. I was really scared of wolves, probably because of the Peter and the Wolf record that we listened to with the scary pictures. I was sure that woofs were in the basement. Also, there was a sump pump down there that ate up some of our wooden puzzle pieces. When I was about 3, my 4-year-old next door neighbor, Wendell, wanted to play barber. I may have been the one who got the scissors. Mom found us on the front steps with a number of my blonde ringlets in my lap. Another time, I locked myself in the upstairs bathroom. Mom talked to the door. Turn the lock, turn the lock, she kept saying, and I just kept crying. Probably didn't try very hard to open it. She had to climb up on the porch roof using a ladder, break the pane, and send my sister through this small little pane so she could unlock the door. I don't think she was too happy afterwards because I may have gotten a little spanking. When I was in first grade, we moved to Lincoln, Nebraska. Dad began working at the home office of Norden Laboratories, where he eventually became president in 1969. We had a double lot with a shuffleboard court where we skated and played badminton, basketball, hopscotch. We hung like monkeys on a bar that Dad put up for us. In the winter, Dad and Joe, my brother, would spray the court with water so that we could ice skate and we could sled down a little hill onto the court. In the summer, we would squeeze ourselves into a shipping barrel and somersault down to the end of the court. I don't know, maybe that's why right now I am a little bit claustrophobic. I don't know, but we had great fun. Dad had beautiful gardens and was often outside while we played. One family trip took us to California with stops in several national parks. We 3 kids shared the back seat of a Studebaker. It was tight back there. My sister and I used to pull our imaginary curtain to partition ourselves off from one another. We sometimes made a tent by pinning blankets to the front seat and spying on Mom and Dad through an opening by the door using a mirror. We sang in the car, "I've been working on the railroad," with Dinah blowing that horn and a lot of fee-fi-fiddly-I-os. We camped in the Badlands, we counted bears in Yellowstone, and we waded in mountain streams. It was on this trip that I fell in love with Disneyland that summer of 4th grade. The following March, I was eating Cheerios, my favorite cereal. "Win a trip to Disneyland," said the back of the box. "All you have to do is to win the first prize is color the picture on the back," which was a picture of the Disney castle. I bought a new box of crayons, 24 of them, and got to work. I love to color, and I felt in my heart of hearts that I was a winner. I kind of forgot about it, but one evening actually, my mother brought my dessert on a plate, and it was an envelope from General Mills. Imagine my surprise when I read the letter. I had won second prize, a red Columbia Fire Aero bicycle with thin tires and a built-in horn. I was really hoping for first prize, but still, winning was pretty cool. Who knows how many children won bikes? Probably lots and lots of them, but I was one of the lucky ones. I named the bike Cheerio, and I rode it to school often. Music has always been a big part of my life. Mom had to do a lot with that. She took piano lessons for many years and would often play us to sleep. We sang Christmas carols, gathered around the piano. I have a number of the pieces that she played, and it's fun to play them and remember her. Her mother used to say, "Elizabeth, play to a wild rose." That became her signature piece, which she was playing by memory in her 90s. The baby grand piano that she got for her 12th birthday was a Chickering, which happened to be her last name. At first, she wasn't too thrilled. thinking it was sort of a dumb birthday present. It didn't take her long to change her tune, however. And also, one of her friends came over one day and ran her fingers over the decal and said, "How did you get your name on your piano?" That piano became a big part of my life all the years that I lived in Lincoln. Now the piano is in the front room of our daughter and husband's house in Pittsford, and their two children are taking piano lessons. I started piano lessons in the second grade, and I remember telling the neighbors that I needed to go inside to practice. C, 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 D, 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 D. It was big stuff. When I was in fourth grade, I started lessons at the Beth Miller studio downtown. I loved my first teacher there and was sad when she moved away. And that's when I started taking lessons with Beth. She was an excellent teacher and has been an inspiration to me throughout my life. When I started taking off with piano in seventh grade, Beth thought that a summer at Rocky Ridge Music Center would be great for me. She had founded this music camp near Estes Park, Colorado in 1942 with just 7 of her students. At the time I was there were 60, 80, something like that. For 6 summers, I was given this opportunity and encouragement. I loved these 8 weeks in the mountains where I could continue studying with Beth, immerse myself in music, meet friends, and enjoy the amazing scenery. The summers at this camp were instrumental in helping me develop into the person that I am today. It was through my music that I became more confident. My junior year in high school, I gave a solo recital. In my scrapbook, I wrote, "I had a pretty good time, except for forgetting some music." I regularly participated in the Nebraska Music Teachers Association auditions, and my senior year, I won the state competition in piano. I went on to compete in the regional auditions in Dallas and was very surprised to be named the West Central Division winner. I remember crying actually that night, knowing that I'd have to play the next day in the nationals. Well, 5 of us played. I didn't win, but it was quite a ride. The next fall, I started my 4 years at Hastings College, a small Presbyterian school 100 miles from Lincoln. Both my brother and sister had gone there, majoring in education, which influenced me, I'm sure. The Hastings College Choir sang at our church a few times, and that was another reason why I was interested in that school. I ended up majoring in elementary education. I took piano lessons my freshman and my senior year from 2 different teachers, which I enjoyed, but I especially loved singing in the touring choir, which was a highlight of my time at Hastings. The summer after my freshman year, I participated in an urban program in Buffalo, New York, through the Presbyterian Church. With another girl, I shared a room above a Planned Parenthood center in a Black neighborhood. The houses were so close that we could easily open our windows and talk to other members of our team next door. We taught vacation Bible school, blocked off the street one day to set up a carnival with the neighborhood kids. We're counselors at a camp on Lake Erie, and we formed a bond with many families in the neighborhood and our team. The following summer, I chose another program, this time in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We developed a close relationship with neighborhood kids at day camp and topped it off with that whole summer with a 4-day canoe trip. Now, I have some photos so I'd like to share. Let me see. Okay, so this is me at a young age, and you can see the ringlets, some of which got cut off. That was when we lived in Westerville. This is my brother Joe, sister Peg, and Cassie. hanging like monkeys on a bar that my dad set up for us. This was our trip to Badlands. And here I am with pajama bottoms tied around, it used to be my head because we were freezing. And my brother Joe and Peg. And this is the Studebaker. And my dad, I think, is leaning over trying to find the mirror so he could shave. I think that's what it was. This is Cheerio, the bicycle that I won. And here mom is playing the Christmas carols and I'm helping her. And here's my brother Joe and a friend. This is the same piano, the Chickering, that was my mom's. And this was when I was a junior in high school. That's quite a hairdo I have there. So, how did Larry and I get together? We just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary this summer, and it's been fun to think back to the first time we began to notice each other. We were at Rocky Ridge Music Center at the same time for 2 summers during our junior high years. His focus was trombone and mine was piano. On Saturdays, we took increasingly difficult hikes with other campers. The final hike was up Long's Peak with only 4 campers and a guide. Larry and I huffed and puffed up the boulder field, but we don't remember paying any attention to each other. In fact, the one picture I have of the group has everyone in it except Larry. He was probably off taking pictures. Oh, he's here. He was probably off taking pictures of scenery. To this day, that's how it goes. He concentrates on scenery. Well, you can see some here of Patagonia. And I go for the people shots. Our families knew each other at East Ridge Presbyterian Church, and Larry and I were in the youth fellowship together. When I was a junior, 7 of us from the group traveled to Chicago with 3 adults to learn about settlement houses and urban development. I was interested in Larry on this trip, but I was pretty shy about it. I guess I expected him to read my mind back then. Since we went to different high schools and different colleges, we didn't see each other much except in church. We exchanged a few letters when I was a senior at Hastings College and he was in Rochester, New York. I had said goodbye to my Cassie years, so when his first "Dear Cassie" a letter arrived, I had to set the matter straight. I wrote something like, "My name is Cass, not Cassie." Well, he heard it as, "My name is not Cassie." One Christmas, we went to a movie together. I headed to Denver, Colorado after graduation for my first teaching job, 5th grade. Larry had taken a job at Kodak in Rochester, but was serving in the Army Reserves at Fort Gordon, Georgia, when he called to see if he could come visit me. I was surprised. I said yes, but at the time I wasn't overly excited. He had donated blood in order to get the long weekend off. On the day of his arrival, I was a bit late getting to the airport. There he was in his uniform, sitting on his duffel bag. I rolled down the window. He walked over, leaned in, and kissed me. Well then, that was the start of a wonderful weekend. After knowing each other for years, the timing was right and things became clear. This was the weekend that I fell in love with Larry and felt sure that he was the one. Do you suppose it was the uniform? We became engaged that summer. When we called our parents, there was much happiness followed by many years of love and support from them. We designed a ring that represented our common but separate lives. I taught another year and we carried on a long distance relationship with lots of letters and cassette tapes. Our wedding was at our church in Lincoln. We wrote our vows and we chose a reading from The Prophet by Gibran. Stand together, but not too near together. Let there be spaces in your togetherness, and let the winds of the heavens dance between you. There have been spaces in our togetherness, but they seem closer through the years. The winds have certainly danced. We chose each other well. So, okay, that's the uniform. I don't think this was when he came. I think this is when I let him off. And he's got a duffel bag, and that's my car right there. My Mustang. I love that car. It was a family car that I got when I did some practice teaching. And here we are in the basement of our church, and we had mints and nuts and punch and cake. That was the reception those days. We moved to Rochester and rented a house in the 19th Ward. We bought a Steinway Grand, a wedding gift to one another, which took up our entire dining room. It wasn't long before we introduced our new Brittany Spaniel to the cat that I had brought to the marriage. For the first 3 years, Larry was working full-time on his PhD at the University of Rochester before returning to Kodak. I taught 6th grade at Kirkroad School in Greece for nearly 5 years. During these years, I attended night and summer classes at SUNY Brockport and received my master's degree. After moving to our first house in West Irondequoit, we started our family. These years were such highlights in our lives. Lori Elizabeth, named after my mother, Elizabeth with an S, was born in 1976. Kurt Franklin arrived in 1978. Franklin is Larry's father's name. I decided to stay home with them and ended up substitute teaching in Irondequoit when the kids were older, followed by a few years of volunteering at School 22 in the city. I used to substitute off and on for Rich Wilder, who at that time was teaching music at a number of elementary schools. As you know, he is actively composing, singing, and playing the piano at our church. Lori and Kurt attended a cooperative nursery school with a very skilled teacher, and I enjoyed assisting regularly. We were members of the UCC church across from the House of Guitars, and I taught Sunday school, was a deaconess, and involved in the music program. The kids sang in the church choir. We formed a number of lasting friendships through this church. When the kids were little, I joined a women's volleyball league, and for years we played each Tuesday night. One year we called ourselves the Lucky Spikes. A couple of my volleyball friends also started playing racquetball with me regularly. Louise is here today. Hi, Louise. You're my racquetball volleyball buddy. Both of these sports were great fun, as I had not been involved in sports in junior high or high school. During these years, I continued playing the piano at home and at church. Sometimes I'd put one of the babies in my Jerry backpack while I practiced. And when they were older, they occasionally sat under the piano. We have videos of Kurt as a toddler matching tones as I played. I accompanied a friend for a couple of vocal recitals at Nazareth College and had spent hours practicing. One evening, Larry recorded Lori as a preschooler singing along with me in another room, parts of Be Not Afraid from Mendelssohn's Elijah. I didn't realize she'd been paying so close attention to the rehearsals. Both Lori and Kurt took piano lessons, and Kurt got his beginning percussion training in 3rd grade, playing the xylophone in Rich Wilder's music class. He enjoyed playing in the wind ensemble in high school. Now, Kurt and Beth and their 3 boys live in New York City and are a musical family. The older 2 boys are enjoying piano lessons, and the younger boy can hardly wait. Rochester is a great place to live if you love music. Both Larry and I love classical music. We've enjoyed the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra for years and have attended chamber concerts, lots of different recitals at Eastman, Hochstein, RIT, various churches. A number of years ago, I joined Morning Musicale, a group of about 30 women who meet monthly to perform for each other in our homes and in the community. We support the RPO, Hochstein students, music education in the community. It's been a wonderful incentive to keep up my piano playing through the years. Larry got his pilot's license before we were married and his instrument rating when the kids were young. We spent one memorable Christmas Eve at a Holiday Inn in Detroit. We were on our way to visit our parents in Lincoln, Nebraska, but we needed to land due to icing on the wings of our small airplane. That Christmas Eve, we swam alone in the pool, and the kids woke up at Christmas morning to discover that Santa had indeed found them. Other small plane trips took us to the Bahamas, Maine, Colorado. It was nice to be able to pop down and visit friends and family on the way. We enjoyed camping, canoeing, and hiking as a family. On one canoe camping trip at Forked Lake in the Adirondacks, we woke to the crashing and slurping of a bear who was enjoying the contents of the ice chest that we were unable to fit in the designated bear container. One of our most difficult hikes when the kids were 12 and 14 was with Larry's brother and family. The 8 of us hiked to the bottom of the Grand Canyon and back out in one day. On the way up to the rim, our mantra was, "Send mules now." Lori spent her junior year of high school in Spain through Youth for Understanding exchange program. During that year, we visited her once and met her wonderful family. A year later, her Spanish parents flew to Rochester for her graduation. In fact, next month, she will be visiting her Spanish mom in Spain. While in college, Lori headed to Mexico for coursework and to get her master's in anthropology, followed by her doctorate from the University of Buffalo. She and her husband, Justin, and 2 children moved to Ecuador after starting their own company in 2009, a software consultancy. For several years, the kids went to school, learned Spanish, and made friends. They're now living in Rochester with regular business trips to Ecuador. That is, till COVID hit. Kurt was active in the Japanese club in high school. Each March for several years, we hosted a student, and Kurt traveled to Japan for an exchange one summer. How fun it was to meet up with Yoko, one of the students, in London years later. While in college, Kurt joined Lori in Mexico for a semester. Now, he and his wife, Beth, and 3 boys enjoy the diversity of New York City, living with friends and enjoying friends from many different countries and cultures. The kids go to public school, and Kurt has served on the PTA as president while working at home as a manager of software engineers. Beth is the senior director of professional billing at NYU Medical Center. Through our kids, we have broadened our international connections. When I was in 4th grade, Herman came to live with us for a year before his family arrived in Lincoln. Herman's father had been one of the prisoners of war who worked on my grandfather Knappenberger's farm in Kansas after the war. After he moved back to his home in Austria, Mom kept in touch with the family for years before their arrival in Lincoln. My parents helped them get settled, and we enjoyed many happy times together. It was Herman who helped me set up my new bike, Cheerio. I loved watching his mother, Maria, make delicious apple strudel and cookies baked on little pieces of edible paper. Their Christmas tree with real candles was magical. My junior year in high school, we hosted Sylvia, an exchange student from Argentina. We've kept in touch all these years and have visited one another. We were just with her and her husband February 2020, right before things closed up due to COVID. Another close connection is with an Iraqi family. Mom got to know Iftikhar and Ali when they were a young couple at the University of Nebraska. She kept in touch with them after they moved back to Baghdad, even during the war there. Years later, we were able to sponsor their daughter, Alia, and her family here in Rochester. Many of you remember Alia's husband, Mohanad, also known as Muhind, who took his first job as custodian at our church, working with and developing a close relationship with Will Hayes. The family moved to Texas and recently to Jacksonville, Florida, following Mohanad's jobs in civil engineering. They're a special family to us and also to Grace Carswell, who was such a big help during those early years. Thank you, Grace. When we were first married, we visited Larry's parents in Scotland, where they were living for a year. They also lived in India for 6 months. When I was 40, Mom and I, with a small group, traveled to Portugal and Spain through a program called the Friendship Force. We lived with a family, we learned a little Portuguese, and we had some wonderful experiences. I feel lucky that Mom and Dad and Larry's parents showed us by example the importance of international friendships. Our lives have been enriched through our travels and connections with these friends. We've had sadness through the years, as most people have. 2 years after we were married, Mom called to say that Dad died suddenly while playing handball at the Y. He was 57. These were really difficult days. A kind substitute teacher planned and taught the first days of school that year for me. Years later, we were shocked to hear of the sudden deaths of our 2 nephews, 5 years apart. They were in their 20s and were sons of my sister and Larry's brother. Both Larry and I have a brother and a sister, each with spouses. Through the years, we have had many extended family get-togethers on both sides. A ski trip to Colorado, several hiking adventures in Colorado, a couple of beach vacations on the Atlantic, hiking in the Adirondacks. We feel lucky that we all get along so well. This is our family, Lori and Kurt, right after he came home from the hospital. This was one of our trips to, it was in the summer. It was not the one that we got stopped in Detroit, but this was probably out to Colorado with little toddler Kurt, and Shell Puppy was Lori's very favorite toy. This is the picture that we were trying for a Christmas picture the year that Herman lived with us. This is my sister over here, my brother. That's me, my father and mother, and Herman in the center. This is our daughter Lori and her husband Justin, who now live in Pittsford. Kurt and Beth in New York City. And here are the grandkids last summer. Kind of a squirrely shot, but lots of fun, all 5 of them. This was taken at our 50th out at Mendon Ponds this summer. This is our family. I'd like to share some thoughts about how we ended up at the Unitarian Church. Mom and Dad were charter members of the Presbyterian Church that I grew up with. Both taught Sunday school and served on the session. Mom had sung in church choirs nearly all her life. I sang in the children's choir, went to Sunday school and Bible school. We strived for perfect attendance in Sunday school, and when we were on vacation, we always seemed to find a church to attend. I remember singing the hymn, "O Zion Haste," in a little chapel near Zion National Park. I thought that was pretty cool. More than once, Dad had to locate our poofy net petticoats in the trunk so that Peg and I could change for church, sometimes out in the countryside. We were close friends with the minister's family and always shared Easters together after the 3 services were over. Church was a big part of our lives. We attended the UCC church in Irondequoit for a number of years. I began to have doubts about intercessory prayer, resurrection, life after death, a personal God. I'm sure these are very meaningful to many people. I feel thankful and appreciative for acts of kindness, friends and family, health, the beauty of this world. Larry and I decided to try the Unitarian Church. Our first visit was in the summer with very few people in attendance, probably in the late 70s. As we recall, we were asked to listen to musical selections and match them to paintings hung in front. It wasn't objectionable, but it didn't resonate with us at the time, and we didn't return for a number of years. When the kids were in junior high and upper elementary, we returned. We thought that we would try it for a year, which we did. We soon learned that there was a lot of variety in the services, which was attractive to us. Dick Gilbert's sermons were thought-provoking, and we really wanted to be a part of the music program with Ed Shell. It wasn't long until we felt at home that year. We joined the church about 1987. It was also working for Kurt, but Lori wanted to return to the neighborhood UCC church, where she attended confirmation class with her friends. Close friends of ours were her church parents those years. For me, it was difficult making that leap. When we went back to visit our families in Lincoln, the minister that we had grown up with heard about us going to the Unitarian Church. He said, "Well, you've left the church." I remember thinking, not really, we've joined another. Mom was sad about our choice, and it bothered her more than I realized at the time. However, she was open-minded when she visited us, appreciating many aspects of the services, though missing the spiritual connection to God. On one of her visits, an interim minister asked us to line up around the sanctuary according to where we saw ourselves, from theists all the way around to atheists. Maybe some of you remember that service. It was an interesting exercise. Mom was on the very end of the theists, and there were a number of humanists near us in the middle, and then there were folks on the other end, the atheist end. There was some conversation as folks placed themselves in line. When Lori was confirmed at the UCC church, Larry's parents and mom flew here from Nebraska. I remember sitting in the second pew with them and other parents. The confirmands sat in front of us and gave their statements of faith. I remembered writing a statement of faith at that age when I was in Mom's Sunday school class. We were asked to seal it in an envelope and open it in 10 years. I found that I wasn't comfortable with many of those beliefs anymore. Passing the communion tray to our parents without participating that first time was hard. A number of years later, Mom came here to live at the Highlands and went to the Pittsford Presbyterian Church as often as she could. I remember one Easter, she was in the hospital a few days, and after our service, I asked Ed Shell if he had a Presbyterian hymnal I could borrow. Ha, did he? He had Lutheran, Episcopal, Methodist, all kinds. I took the Presbyterian hymnal to my mom in the hospital, and she really appreciated having it there where she could read the familiar responsive readings, the hymns, many of which she knew by heart. One memorable Christmas Eve, Mom was invited to recite the Luke Christmas story at her Pittsford church. This was something we had heard every Christmas we were together. She walked up to the front of the congregation and told the story with feeling and heart by memory. It was very moving to me. And singing hymns at her bedside her last night with Joe and Peg, Larry and Lori felt so right. As a member of the caring community here at church for a number of years, I wrote notes to folks going through hard times, experiencing loss, celebrating births and successes. I hope that those were helpful and supportive. My connections with people are important to me. I like people, and I like to listen to them, and I like to hear their stories. I've been known to be the one asking the questions, directing the conversation away from myself, bordering on interrogation, and hopping from one topic to the next. I have to watch myself. It's easier for me to listen than to share. So thanks all of you for listening and for sharing on Elder Tree all these months. Libby, thank you so much for all of your support and for your encouragement to all of us.
Oh, Kas, we are so blessed to have you among us. I have to say, I'm trying to figure out how to remove the spotlight from, oh, here we go. All right, I'm going to go back to gallery view so I am so touched by all of that. And I love the pictures, but I also, I kept thinking of intersections, like my blonde curls that my grandma cut off. My mother was very mad.
Oh.
My family had a Studebaker. So I wonder where, for others of you, what questions would you like to ask Kas, and where did you find intersections that you might want to bring up? And if you know how to raise your hand, do it. Otherwise, just wave. And between Deborah and me and Ruth, we'll figure out who wants to talk. Joy Collins would like to talk. Go ahead, Joy.